Susie come to school in transition. Little Johnny takes a step inside the front door and changes into a dress and puts on makeup. Mom and dad have to quote the policy, earn the right to know their children's identities. That was a couple of years ago, but Eau Claire schools have not gotten any less woke. I got to give all credit here to Quinton Klabon. He works for the Institute for Reforming Government. He does an awful lot of their education stuff. He flagged this. I caught this from him on X. In fact, I retweeted it to start the show this hour. This is why we need people to go and watch. This is why we need somebody who's not a 22-year-old who just graduated from UW Eau Claire and is getting paid $9 an hour to go and say, oh, the school board met tonight and they talked about school lunches. He shared the discussion about Eau Claire's equity policy. They have to rewrite their equity statement by December. And I don't know if it was this week or last week, but there was a conversation. The current policy, and I'll read you the whole thing here in a second, but the reason they're talking about this is the current policy includes this line. Our predominantly white privileged perspective, culture, and system is failing our students and families of color. Now, the sound quality on this tape is not great. This is what happens when you have somebody with a speaker microphone record an online discussion. It's not that great. I trimmed it down. You're going to hear one board member, a woman, talking about this, and she's like, I'm not so sure we need to keep that white privileged line. And then there's a guy who comes on and says, well, you know what? I'll just let you hear what it is that he has to say.
We still acknowledge predominantly privileged perspective and culture because I think it shows how we got here from a historical perspective. And not to say that...
I think we can do that without saying the perspective of the school district is white.
True.
So it's not to not, again, systemic racism is real. It's harmful. Systemic inequities are real across multiple identities. We know that. Yeah, I don't disagree with you that we can identify that as an issue. But perhaps what we should do is frame it historically, which is to say, historically, these things have occurred, which have produced this problem. And
that's what I was saying. That's especially related. I'm sorry to cut you off, but related to what Dan said about talking about what we're dismantling as well, because frankly, I don't want to let white people off the hook because a lot of bad stuff, and we need to stop and do better stuff. So,
again, it's not the greatest of quality. And the line that you needed to hear was, frankly, I don't want to let white people off the hook because we've done a lot of bad stuff and we need to stop and do better stuff. The guy who said that is a school board member. He's white. This is what we are up against in public schools. This is the kind of wokeness that has consumed public schools, not just here in Wisconsin, but across the country, but particularly in this case, woke school districts like Eau Claire. I went and looked at Eau Claire's state report card. Eau Claire schools are 73% white. Just 2.5% of the kids in Eau Claire schools are black. 10% are Asian. It is a predominantly white school district who the school board says is white privileged and did bad stuff. 40% of Eau Claire kids cannot read or write or do math at grade level. They're graduating about 80% of their kids, 20%. 1 in 5 who walks in the front door at Eau Claire North High School won't graduate, and they're okay with it because they want to heckle and bargain and find the proper terms to say just how racist the school is. Now, here's the full equity statement. And I know it's long. And I know that this is bureaucratic gobbledygook, but this is the kind of stuff that matters to school boards. This is the kind of stuff that they spend their time focusing on. This is the focus of an entire school board meeting. Not reading, not math, Not figuring out how to boost their graduation rate. No, the equity statement. The Eau Claire Area School District is committed to eliminating the systematic racism present in our society and schools while building an equitable and inclusive school community. The ECASD acknowledges